Hey everybody, it is Rodney May with another Challenges from the Challenger, or Challenger Challenges, either way, as I share with you just things that have helped me, have helped other people in my 20 years of counseling, mentoring, and teaching as I commute back and forth to work in my Dodge Challenger. So that's why it's called Challenger Challenges, or however we want to do it. And I got a dog running across the road. Look out, doggy. Look out, doggy. Come on, move. Move, dog. Oh, I can't turn you around. Move, dog. Golly. Go home. That's what happens when you're doing this on a commute. I just had a dog come out in the road and me and other cars were beeping at him. Anyway, so here we go. Take two. Wait, that's timeout. Take two. Whatever. So what I want to talk to you about today is, again, something that has helped me, something that I've carried with through my life, and something that may be helpful to you as well. What I want to talk to you about today is, it's a thing called victimization and agency. So what I mean by that is, every person, when they go through life, when they have issues, when they deal with stuff, hurts or past pains or whatever, there's always two parts to every situation. Victimization, that is where we are legitimately victimized. There's things that can happen to us that we didn't ask for, we didn't deserve, we were victimized. There are things that people can do, situations that can hurt us, and it wasn't because we caused it. Just bad things can happen. So that's the victimization side of it. The other side of it is our agency. That is where we have our part in causing the issue. Maybe it's a reaction from the victimization, or maybe we got something going on and we got angry or whatever and we caused the problem, whatever it is. So we have agency and we also have victimization. Sometimes people will lean one way or the other. Oftentimes they will lean towards the victimization side. I don't know if you know anybody who plays the victim role all the time. They're like, oh, it's not my fault, and oh, this happened to me, and oh, poor me, oh, I feel so sorry for me, and they just live that way. They live in the world of a victim. I'm always the victim. I'm never at fault. And if I am at fault, you made me be at fault, right? So a lot of times people do lean towards the victimization side of these two things. Other people will lean towards the agency side. They will get them before they get got, right? Or they will protect themselves. They will do something against someone because, oh, they could get them. And that's a reaction to pain. They've been victimized in the past, so they created what I would call a never again statement in their mind, and they said, never again will I be victimized in this way, never again will I feel hurt in this way, or those around me, I will not allow that hurt. And a lot of times that's legitimate, right? I mean, if you faced abuse, you never want to be abused again, and you're going to protect those under your care from being abused as well. That's a good thing, right? So those are never again statements. But you can lean it too far to the agency side only and be like this ultra hard, your walls are up, no one can get in kind of person. You don't want to do that either. You really need a good balance. You need a balance of the two. It is true that we do get victimized at times. It happens probably every day if we really had to think about it. We live in a fallen world. There are situations and people and circumstances that things happen to us that we didn't ask for, we don't want. It happens. But we also can see things where I didn't handle that situation the best way I could have. I said something I shouldn't have. I did something I shouldn't have. Or I didn't do something I should have. So the balance of that victimization agency is really important in someone's life. This is how it kind of hit home for me, and this is where the lesson kind of really hit me. I used to be in my maybe early 20s, teens, early 20s. I did go around with this kind of victim mentality. There were powers that were stronger than I was, and I was like, oh, I'm a victim. I can't help these things, and oh, it's just, I'm being tossed to and fro in the sea of life kind of thing. And I was going around with this almost like a badge of honor. This, I'm a victim. I'm poor me. I'm a victim. And I remember hearing this kind of a motivational speaker, more like an inspirational speaker, I guess. And he comes on there, and the first thing he says, if you forget everything else that I said, and I know other speakers have said that, but it always gets my attention, because and I believe them. I believe that when speakers say that, if they say, if you forget everything else that I said, remember this one thing, I really believe that they want you to remember that one thing above everything else, and everything else they're going to say is going to support that one idea, like a thesis statement, right? Well, he comes on there, he says, if you forget everything else that I'm going to say, please remember this one thing. And this is what he said. This was years ago. This is almost 20 years ago, and it's still almost verbatim has been burned in my brain. He said, no matter where you find yourself in life, whether good or bad, it's all your fault. And as a early 20-something-year-old, I'm like, oh no, it has to be other people's fault too, And then, and he said it again, no matter where you find yourself, wherever you find yourself in life, whether good or bad, it's all your fault. Then he went on to say, it's not your daddy's fault. It's not the government's fault. It's not the economy's fault. It's not your upbringing's fault. It's not your boss's fault. It's not your education's fault. It's not the police's fault. It's not the court's fault. It's your fault. Wherever you find yourself, whether good or bad, it's all your fault. And at the time, I change it now a little bit. When I teach that concept, I do tell that story, but I change it a little bit, and I'll share that with you in a few minutes. But at the time, I needed to hear that. As an early 20-something-year-old, I needed to hear, oh, I cannot blame my financial woes on the economy. Because the economy is always going to be up and down. So I cannot be dependent on the economy if I'm going to be financially stable or not. And then when it comes to things that I could change, then that's where it becomes all my fault if I don't make those changes. So if I want a certain career, or if I want a certain job, and I'm unwilling to go to school, or if I'm unwilling to go to a trade school, or if I'm unwilling to take that online class, or if I'm unwilling to put in the work and put in the homework, then I don't deserve that position. Then it's my fault. It's not my lack of education's fault. It's my fault for not doing it. So I do change it a little bit, because how he said it, it was present tense. So I add one word to that statement. When I teach it, what I say is, no matter where you find yourself in life, whether good or bad, tomorrow, it's all your fault. No matter where you find yourself in life, whether good or bad, tomorrow, it's all your fault. Because I want to recognize both victimization and agency. There's both. So some of us were raised by parents, whoever our caretakers were, our guardians, very well. Maybe they did a very good job. Maybe they had very good, they set us up for success, right? And there's other people that I know, and I was not brought up with a silver spoon in my mouth in any form or fashion. I was brought up by a blue collar, uneducated man who was a hard worker, but it was not, college was not in my sights, basically. That was something that came later. So I have to recognize, and I work with adolescent teens now, who have been either removed from the home or they're delinquent, they're in trouble with the law, that sort of thing. And they did I almost want to say all of them, but most of them, in some form or fashion, did not have homes that were conducive to a successful future. It's just what it is. So I have to recognize my own and people that I interact with, their victimization side. Some people had very good upbringings and some people didn't. So those that didn't, that's a legitimate victimization. But what are you going to do about it, right? What are you going to do about it tomorrow? So if someone is lacking something, if they don't know how to be successful, if they don't know what to do, if they don't know where to go, if they don't know how to get educated, if they don't know how to better themselves, if they don't know how to become articulate in their language, if they don't know how to do certain things, well, if you decide that I'm not going to learn because I wasn't taught before, whose fault is it where you find yourself tomorrow? Your fault, and that's your agency side. And so if I want to do something, I have to say, okay, I don't have the skills or experience or education and whatever it is. And if I really want to do that certain thing, I then decide in my agency, I decide if I'm going to learn it or not. So ultimately, where I find myself tomorrow, whether good or bad, is all my fault. Where I find myself, maybe not today, and definitely not when I was a child. It's not my fault. Where you were brought up is not your fault. When you were a kid, what happened to you was not your fault. Maybe you need to hear that. When you were 5, 6, 11, 13 years old, what happened to you was not your fault. Now, as maybe a later adolescent, maybe getting ready to become an adult, maybe you're a young adult, maybe you're an old adult. Where you go tomorrow, what you do with your victimization, that employs your agency, and that is all on you. It's just personal responsibility. I mean, that's all I'm preaching. It's just personal responsibility. The fancy word. I say, not all your fault, right? Well, it's just a harsh way of saying personal responsibility. Every person is personally responsible for who they are, where they go, what they do. And, I know people that say no to that. They say, no, I am who I am, and what my past and my trauma, it made me who I am. Okay, you are welcome to live that way. You're welcome to live as a victim. But you have to understand, if it's a choice, which it is, if it's a choice to live as a victim, you're actually employing your agency to live in that victimization status. Does that make sense? So what does it look like when you balance your victimization and agency? Well, it's simply this. It's simply you recognize your shortcomings. You recognize who you are based on what you've gone through, how you were brought up, your experiences, that sort of thing. You got to be honest. Do self-inventory. Where were you victimized? And just own it. Own it. If you have abuse in your past, that's what it is. You can't go back and change it. So I've been legitimately victimized. Now the agency part, this is where it comes together. You just simply ask yourself, okay, what am I going to do with it now? Am I going to allow my victimization to continue to hold me back, hold me down? Or do I actually want to get better? Do I actually want to move in a positive direction? That is a big thing that I try to teach the boys, the delinquent boys that I teach and mentor and counsel with, is they all have pain. I mean, I don't know if you ever dealt with people, young people, who have been hurt, and I'm talking like really hurt, real victimization, abuse. I remember talking to a boy quite a while ago, and he told me, just kind of in passing, he said, well, when I would do bad, my mom would put me in a closet because she didn't want to hear me. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a little concerning, and so I didn't blow a whistle and throw red flags around, but of course you want to get more of the story when you hear something like that. So I asked, well, how long would you be in this closet? And he'd say, oh, I don't know, a long time. I said, can you give me any kind of time frame? And this boy was kind of young. No. He goes, all I know is that it would be dark when I would go in, and I could see light under the door of the closet, and then it'd be dark again, and then it'd be light again. I mean, and if you think about how many hours that had to have been, over 24. That's a whole night, a day, probably another night, and but when you're locked in a closet like that, I mean, you don't have a sense of time. And he said that one time he was so thirsty in there that he found some cleaner. He didn't know what it was, but it was a liquid and it was green. He was so thirsty, he drank the cleaner and he passed out, and he woke up in the hospital. Someone found him and brought him to the hospital. He had drank cleaner because he was so thirsty after being locked in this closet. My point with that is, he was legitimately victimized. He was legitimately abused. It was not his fault. But now, as a young man, he needs to decide, am I going to stay locked in a closet? Am I going to keep myself a victim and carry that closet around with me for the rest of my life? Or am I going to recognize what happened? Yes, it happened. It shouldn't have. But I'm going to say, I'm done with that. That's in my past. I'm closing the door, so to speak. I'm coming out of that locked closet, and I'm closing the door behind me, never to return. And I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to make something of my life. So that's just a little taste, a little example of some of the things that I'm trying to do with these boys. Some of them get it. Some of them do. Some of them, they look at me when I tell them that they have potential, when I tell them that they can do great things, when I tell them that, yes, your past, there's things that shouldn't have happened, and you were legitimately victimized, but you also have this agency, and you can move into the world proactively in spite of your past and do great things. And they look at me like, no one's ever told me that before. No one's ever told me I was worth something. And I don't know, maybe you need to be told that too. Maybe you need to be told that you are worth something. And your past, yeah, it's your past. And stuff happened that shouldn't have happened. And maybe you did some things you shouldn't have done too. There's no changing it now. Now it's time to pick yourself up, brush the dust off your knees, wash your hands, wash your face, and get up and get moving. And make a strong, good, positive impact on this world by recognizing your victimization and employing your agency. And if you do those things, if you do that, you can do amazing, great things. Everyone can. Everyone is put on this world for a purpose, multiple purposes. But if you stay locked in the closet, if you stay locked in the victimization phase, you'll never fully realize it. So I just want to encourage you with that. I hope that was a little bit helpful. You're welcome to go to my website if you'd like, rodneymaywander.com. I have an email, rodneymaywander@gmail.com. Off my website, I upload YouTube videos like this, the Challenger Challenges. I'm also uploading my life skills lessons that I do with the delinquent boys, the adolescent boys that I counsel and teach. So I put those up there as well. So you're welcome to watch those. If you have questions, comments, or whatever, feel free to email me, and I will talk to you later. God bless, and thanks for listening. Have a great day.